So chapter 10 started with Harry and Ron and Hermione going over um, like the book, and Harry had continued to excel in potions because of all the notes in the book. There were notes for specific potions, even notes for some tiny other things. But Hermione did not like that Harry was following these notes. Ron was just mad that he couldn't read the notes himself and do better in the class. But Harry was like, the notes are there, so I'm gonna use them. And so they were just he was reading through it, and then it's like it's almost time for me to go and visit Dumbledore for my lessons. And Ron and Hermione were like, "Good luck. Let us know what you guys go over." And so Harry goes on to Dumbledore's office and sets the password. Dumbledore says, "Come in." And Dumbledore's just sitting in his office. Harry kind of expected the room to look a little different because he expected that they would be working on like battle spells, those type of things. But Dumbledore was just like, take a seat. He's like, I already worked off with Snape, so you'll be doing your detention next Saturday. And Harry didn't care about that, obviously, but um, then he's like, okay, we can get started. Um, he said, I know you probably expected something differently, but we're gonna start, kind of easier. He's like, you are aware what I told you about what happened to your parents and why that happened. Harry was like, yeah. He's like, um, I haven't told you everything, but it's not because, like, he basically said, I make mistakes sometimes. It's not my fault, but mistakes I make tend to be bigger than regular, like, small mistakes that are made. So Dumbledore pulls out the pensive or pensieve, and he says, we're not going to go through one of my memories. We're going to go through another memory I've collected. And this was the person that I believe it was the head of like law enforcement in the Ministry of Magic a while back. And let me make sure. Bob Ogden, that was his name. And so they jump into his memory of a situation that happened in the past. And so they go, he's walking down a street, like little Hilltown, Hangleton. There's so much information in this chapter, like specific information, that I just want to make sure I have it right. So they're walking down the street and they go off to an obscure looking house. And so they're just walking in the memory, and Mr. Ogden, he comes up to the door, and someone comes up to him like he looks like he's covered in rags, looks very dirty, and he has a knife and a wand in his hand and says, "You're not welcome here." But he didn't say it in like regular English, so he said it in. Um, but he's Dumbledore asked Harry, he's like, "You can understand him, right?" Because he said it in the snake language, the apostle tongue. And so Harry could understand what he was saying, but Mr. Ogden was like, "I can't understand what you're saying." And then he attacked him and like cut his nose and it was like oozing. And then another person came out and was like, "Back up." His name is Morphin, the kid. His name is. And the reason that Mr. Ogden is there has to do with Morphin because he attacked a muggle, or no, yeah, he performed a spell in front of a muggle, and his spell was on the muggle, or a regular human. And Mr. Gaunt, that is the person that came out, who happens to be his dad. So comes out, collects him, and he's like, "Can I come in?" He's like, "All right, come in." Um, then they go, and he tells him why he's there. He's there because blah blah blah. Your son did this, and he's a little apprehensive at first, and he notices there is a woman in the room as well, and she is messing with a bunch of pans. She drops one and tries to like repair it, and she doesn't do well with her magic, and Mr. Ogden repairs it, and then Mr. Gunn calls her a squib, basically someone who can't do magic well or barely has any magical powers at all, just like Mr. Filch. Um, and so he kind of yells at her a little bit, and a lot of them speak in the snake language. So Harry can understand what they're saying, but Mr. Ogden cannot. And so they go and talk. They're talking, he's explaining what's going on and that there has to be a hearing and all this. And he's like, we're not going to go for this hearing. And then they hear some horse trotting in the background, and everyone goes silent. Um, and specifically, the woman whose name Merope. I really hope I'm saying that right, Merope. Um, she goes white and still. So you hear people talking in the background. The name Tom is said, and darling. So it sounds like a husband and wife are just talking, and they're really gossiping very loudly about the inhabitants of the house, calling them like dirty and calling the son crazy and all those type of things. And later I find out that Tom is the person that Morphin attacked, and because Merope has been like staring at him, like googling at him, and the dad is very angry about that because he's human and they only care about purebloods, because it did state also that they are the last living relatives of Salazar of Slytherin. They're the last living relatives of Slytherin, like the main guy. And so, come to find out when they do leave the house, so Morphin ends up trying to attack Ogden because because Ogden not attacked, but hit Ogden with a spell. Morphin attacked him, and he ran out the house, came back with reinforcements later. Everyone got arrested except for Merope. They got taken. Dad got, they both got Azkaban times. I think Dad got 3 years. Morphin got more time. But as they went through, Dumbledore was like, he explained what happened, and the rest, they kind of have to guess. They don't have the exact facts, but they had to guess what happened as they went through. So Merope was in love with Tom. She hit him with a love potion and made him fall in love with her. And they had a kid, and this kid was Voldemort. So this was Voldemort's mom and dad, and that was their story. He never really loved her, and he was made to love her. And once the spell went away, he left her. She had the kid, and that ended up being Voldemort. And then Voldemort ended up going back and killing his dad later on. But yes, so Mr. Gaunt was Voldemort's grandfather, and that was how the story went. Now, when they went back, Dumbledore basically said to Harry, "Don't tell anybody this." Harry asked, "Can I tell Ron and Hermione though?" And he said, "Sure, you can tell them, but no one else," and because he trusts them. And then they go back, and there was a ring that Mr. Gaunt was wearing that Harry had noticed was the same ring that Dumbledore was wearing when he went to go pick him up earlier in the book. But Dumbledore's hand injury is still there, and he was trying to put two and two together, and Dumbledore was like, "I'm going to tell you that story later, just not today." And he was like, "How do you get that ring?" Harry asked, "How did you get that ring?" He's like, "I'll tell you later." But and then he just left.